Hey, everybody, I'm David Bloom with Next TMT and Media Play News, our partner in all this hilarity. I am so happy to be here with Matt Smith, Chief Evangelist for AKTA, which does a lot of really interesting technology to solve a lot of the problems that are challenging our newly AI enabled, some places, streaming universe. One of the ones I think we're going to try and get into several different items in different segments here. But for this segment, let's talk a little bit about the fragmentation of the supply chain. So the current problem, lots of legacy media and broadcasters and media networks, they've pieced together stuff over years, decades, right? They've got workflows that in some cases date back to Walter Cronkite, may he rest in peace. And they've got on-prem hardware, they've got these software systems they've plugged in, and they've sort of Frankenstein them all into this thing that works, but maybe not for the future. In terms of ingest, transcoding, content management, all that stuff, moving these gigantic files, and they're only getting bigger as we get more Ks in our numbers of resolution. So there's lots of bottlenecks, lots of challenges. So talk about what you're seeing and kind of where it's going.
David, you nailed it. I'd start by saying most media companies are not short on content, right? They're short on speed, efficiency, and workflow simplicity. So what we do is we're built to help keep video teams, to help them move faster and operate smarter and unlock more value from every asset. What does that mean? So, like you said, the old workflow was not built for today's content demands, right? We've got more consolidation. We've got, do more with less. It's more and more and more. Why can't you 2 or 3 or 10 guys do, 10x the content? Well, you can, right? But you need something to help you with the more mundane tasks. I say mundane, but I mean, they're part and parcel of what we do.
It's the everyday headaches of just getting something out the door, right? I
Yeah,
mean, that's just the reality.
Or even the process of that, right? Typing out a title, typing out a description, adding meta tags, right? That required humans, butts and seats in front of a monitor just 5 years ago. And today, agentic AI can solve most of these problems for you. The problem is, and this is my observation, is there's too many companies that are kind of sitting on the dock with their toes in the water, like, yeah, this is kind of nice. And what I mean by that is they're applying AI to little snippets of their workflow, where
their toes are damp, but that's about it, right?
And meanwhile, I'm in there in my swim trunks, waving, going, "Hey, water's warm. It feels good here. Let's go, right?" But seriously, and you nailed it. I thought, and you stole my thunder. Frankenstein workflows create friction at every handoff, right? Because you've got A solution, B solution, C solution, D solution. None of them really talk to each other well. None of them, and don't even use the real 25-cent term, which is orchestration, right? Orchestration is the key to efficiency. And
right. So that's the AI layer on top of the AIs that are specialized that makes them all play well together, right? That's orchestration.
Completely, right? Orchestration means that these pieces are working in concert. And it doesn't just mean that, again, solution A tells solution C that, hey, I'm done, right? It's more nuanced than that, right? So we've even moved, since you and I spoke in Vegas in April, we've even moved to a model where we are not only having agents that perform tasks like VOD syndication or live analysis or metadata extraction, but now we have agents managing agents. Now, I know, crazy as that sounds, think of it though in terms of like your college course or your high school, history course, where you've got an instructor. They want to check your work, right? So, hey, David, you got a 98 on the test. You only missed this one little thing, but let me check all your work. Let me make sure that everything's right here. And you did your homework, so you got that 98, but there needs to be someone or something there that is kind of managing and understanding the work. The raw work product can come back from these agents, but as we've all read and seen, sometimes the efficacy suffers a little bit. This, tutor, this professor as I'll call it, almost serves to say, let me see your work. Let me see how you got to that problem. And we'll talk about whether you need to correct something or not.
Well, even Hollywood agents need agents managing them. So CAA has, WME, UTA, they've got like Brian Lord or used to be Michael Ovitz or, Aria Man. So there's agents managing agents, but this is going to be like, this makes Hollywood look silly. Not that it doesn't usually look silly anyway, a little bit. But that being said, you're trying to create a soup to nuts solution
Yep.
as opposed to a set of, again, kind of jerry-rigged Frankenstein bolt-ons to fix parts of the problem, but not the whole workflow. And it's the workflow challenge as a whole that much of the industry still faces because, as you say, they dip their toes in. They don't get in because it's scary. And how much do you want to put your whole business on this thing? So how do you quell concerns that a big company trying to get stuff out the door, this will solve your problem and will do it reliably? How do you talk about those kinds of, I'm sure, very important operational questions?
Yeah, it's a multifunctional discussion, David. It's not just, a couple of years back, it would have just been with the technology guy, right? The VP of engineering or the head of product or something like that. Well, now the finance guys get involved too, right? So they're the
Absolutely.
guys.
CFOs now is their thumbs are in this thing as much as anybody, right? That's the thing.
100%, 100%,
Yeah,
right? I did a tour through Comcast and I lived that life myself. And there's merit to that discipline, right? Which is the finance guys want to understand why you're spending this money, where you're spending it, what the ROI is, right? So it's the finance guy is important as the product and the technology guy because they understand how the product wants to look and they understand how the, underneath the plumbing should work to feed that product. But the finance guy wants to understand what we're spending money on and why and what the ROI is, if any. So yeah, it's a multifaceted discussion. And it's not just, single stakeholder anymore. There in these media organizations and these sports leagues, there's many people who have a seat at the table and want to have part of that discussion, right? So
sure.
we're really driven by, this mantra, well, many mantras, but I mean, fragmentation is the enemy of speed, right? A lot of these organizations are like, I've got more content, I got to create vertical content, I've got to do this, I've got other things that are being thrown on my plate in addition to the regular business that we've got to run day in, day out. And if you just kind of bolt things on, it's that you are doing that to your despair, right? Because it's, it's a
Not
losing
to your detriment, your despair. It's like you think Frankenstein kind of felt bad after being animated. Just wait till you bolt on your vertical solution on top of your everything else. Give me an idea though about when we talk about ROI. Like, what would a company? I mean, obviously, every company's different. Every company's got different costs, et cetera. But what's sort of something they should be looking for, shooting for, expecting from a transition, such a wrenching shift and transformation of what they do into this new generation, new era of
Absolutely.
content
So
handling?
yeah, absolutely. So I'll leave them nameless, but one of the largest streaming platforms in the world, that is a customer of ours, went from a team of 35 people managing fast channel creation, live linear channel curation, on-demand content, you know, management, metadata enrichment, population. And within 18 months, through technology, good hand, we were able to move them to a world where they had 3 people. So we're talking, orders of magnitude of efficiency for, the same type of content output. In fact, still growing with a footprint that is a third, and not a third, which is a
A
tenth
10th.
size of what it was, and with no operational drop off, with no impact to the organization, simply because and you have to think of it this way. It's not about, okay, we're just going to pick this head up and that head and, either throw them out or throw them over here. It's not about that. This is about letting technology help you to be more efficient. So let technology create the slug right? For us journalists, the title of that piece of content. Let it create the short description. Let it create the meta tags. Yes, it may get meta tags wrong, right? It may look at a weather clip and say thunder, lightning, palm trees, wind, hurricane. No, it's not a hurricane. It's just a bad storm, right? So, but one person can easily go and click X and eliminate that meta tag. But the point is that AI did all of this very tedious, heavy lifting, right? That someone used to have to sit there and type out at their keyboard just 18 months ago.
Can you quantify that? Because it seems to me that it's not just headcount changes. You talked a little bit about speed, basically, of throughput.
Yep.
And obviously, there's a bunch of stuff you don't have to do. But like, okay, so I don't need as many bodies here. So that's a significant savings. But to get the same stuff done, the same very heavy process oriented stuff done. But can you talk a little bit about timeframes in terms of, how long does it take a piece of content to go through the pipe, to go through the boa constrictor, basically, that pig to get
Absolutely.
through?
Absolutely. So let's talk about what all the cool kids are doing these days, right? Vertical video, they're scrolling, right? They want to see the swipe, 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 swipe. So one of our customers came to us and said, look, we're seeing the audience. They want that sort of content. We want to enable that, but we're having to take a mezzanine asset that drops into our platform, pull it out, pull it into a nonlinear editor, NLE, right? Final Cut, Premiere, pick your poison, and
Reframe it, right? And all
reframe
that.
it, vertically orient it, render it, and then spit the file out, bring it back into our platform, and then socially syndicate to Insta, to Threads, to wherever they're going. But that's entirely too long. And by the way, that process took about 12 to 13 minutes. One file, 12 to 13 minutes. So we looked at it and we said, let's do this in software. So now when the signal is coming in or when the file is ingested, we're doing an analysis. We're doing a vector frame analysis. We're doing speech to text. We're pulling meta tags out. We're generating a transcript. So captions aren't even needed anymore because we're pulling them out of the content. So all these enrichment pieces are interesting, but let's stay with the focus. So an editor at this organization can now take a piece of content and it could be two heads on a desk. It could be something else, right? And the AI says, and it even understands what's happening in the frame. So it says, let's take this thing full, meaning it's a vertically oriented, wide shot. Or if it's two heads at a desk, it's top and bottom, right? And it'll follow them. It'll track them throughout the length of the clip. Anyway, we can do the same action in software in the cloud in 2 to 3 minutes, where it took 12 to 13 minutes for someone to do this by hand. So that's
Okay.
again, real cost savings, real
Yeah, that's
economical savings.
4 to 5x right there, right?
Yep.
So, yeah,
Yep.
makes a big difference.
Absolutely.
We have much more to talk about in some other segments we're going to do. I think this is a good place for us to close this particular part and let Frankenstein lurch over to the village to have some tea for those who are still dodging the villagers with their torches, saying, we want our stuff faster and better. So, with that, let me wrap this up. I'm David Bloom with Next TMT and Next TMT Talks, here with Matt Smith, Chief Evangelist for AKTA, about the ways that this market has created over the decades Frankenstein systems bolted together out of various parts, including abnormal brains. That's a young Frankenstein reference for those of you who are not Mel Brooks fans. And creating things that get stuff out the door that maybe aren't optimized for the complicated and interesting future right in front of us in broadcast and media. Thank you, Matt. And we will be back with more stuff. And today we are talking in this episode about live streaming, cloud DVR, and the low latency crisis. The market problem here is that sometimes people want to watch your stuff. Sometimes a lot of people want to watch your stuff. A lot of people. I think we first saw this, I don't know, 15, 16, a long time ago, when people discovered that Victoria's Secret was going to have a bunch of people not wearing very many clothes walking across the stage online live. And it melted the internet. And it's been happening ever since. Netflix had problems with its live events, its first live events a couple of years ago, and now they're figuring it out. But everybody who's doing live, which is hot, everybody who's doing anything that's going to be closely watched, particularly the live stuff, has to figure out how to live up to the expectations of viewers that they want it now. They want it not buffering. They want to have a good experience. And it's particularly a case, I would guess, in places that are legacy media, where the audience has been trained to expect what broadcast does or what cable does, right? As opposed to what streaming allows, which is reaching lots of people in highly targeted ways. But when everybody piles in, you got a problem. What have you seen in terms of grappling with this, in terms of the challenges it causes throughout the output chain? And where do we go, Matt?
Very good question. And you mentioned some historical stuff that I was part of, right, at broadcast.com, right, the Victoria's Secret thing. So yeah, you're right. We've been struggling as an industry to keep up with the demand, with the interest, right? I mean, Victoria's Secret was one thing, and then next thing you know, we're doing Super Bowls and World Cups, and which is very timely because this week we are doing the World Cup for one of our biggest customers. So you're absolutely right. Being a butt in a seat in one of those organizations and watching the lights dim and the windows shake and the air conditioner kind of go on the cricks.
Oh,
Right.
we
Um,
seem to be having problems,
yeah,
Houston.
yeah, you're doing the Sam Jackson, Jurassic Park, hold on to your butts, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it is not, I mean, all joking aside, it's a big deal because let's keep in mind the companies that we're servicing, they've paid a lot of money for these rights, right? And they're expecting to make a lot of money off the advertising revenue. So
And the advertisers expect them to deliver
and
their ads and all the content flawlessly also. It's not
that's
just the
right.
audience, right?
That's
So
right.
it's the paying guys too.
That's right. It's that
So
5 9s thing, right? You got to be up, you got to get it done. So, we've had again, I don't want to break my arm to pat the organization on the back, but we've done multiple Super Bowls, we've done multiple World Cups. So we're familiar with scale and we know how to use microservices. We know how to use things at the edge that help mitigate when you've got 1 million, 2 million, 5 million people that want to consume that stream. There's architecture considerations that you absolutely take into account. You're not going to go back to the origin for all these requests, right? Because you're just going to crash the plane. So we've learned those things and we know how to, you know, being a company that's mostly engineers, to build solutions that can scale, right? No matter if it's the local station in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, or if it's VIX and they need to do the World Cup, the same infrastructure is there, right? And it's in place. Now, Hattiesburg, Mississippi, there may be 17,000 people watching the live local news, but if it's
or watching Southern Mississippi University's football game, right? I mean, that's
hey,
probably like 2/3 of the town all at once watching that, right? You better deliver,
that's
right?
right. That's right.
So
Very, very excellent context as always, David. But conversely, if it's Sunday and it's the World Cup here in Dallas and it's and forgive me, I'm a very casual soccer fan, but it's two nations that are playing against each other. Yeah, you've got a global audience that wants to see that. So to your point, you've got to be able to deliver it. The stream's got to be solid. When the break hits, the ads have to be solid. Everything has to be 5 9s, up and running, everything's there. We've learned how to do that using technology, right? It's not like we're using real server circa 2001 or whatever. We understand the complexity. Now, one thing I will quickly say is you've got new technologies that are even faster to start up and quicker to watch, like MOQ, and we're working on things like this with Oracle. And it's interesting and it's evolving. And yes, it is kind of the new shiny object, but it's definitely not the standard for streaming to that we've established over 10 or 15 years, right? With
right.
HLS and all this stuff that we know is robust and very reliable. So
And that's really crucial. So it's good to explore these things. You guys are looking into that next frontier. But again, if you are doing World Cup, which I have heard likened to not one Super Bowl, but 100 Super Bowls with 100 million people
Right.
watching most games. Maybe they didn't show up to Guadalajara last night, but that being said, they definitely showed up on TV. The live event is the thing now. It's the thing that all the big streaming companies are betting on. Live sports, live news when it breaks. You've got to be able to deliver because that's what the audience and the advertisers expect. Now, it's always been, let's get it out to the edge. Let's use CDNs and all of that stuff and push it away from the center spot so that local nodes that are going nuts, maybe it's Mexico going crazy, obviously, over their opening match win, but and Czechia getting big over there, but not necessarily some other place. And you've got to balance those things out. You have this thing called containerized microservices, which feels just a little bit to me like something I order from HelloFresh and a prepared meal. And I can't wait to dive in on it, except this is actually about delivering programming I want to dive into. So, how does that containerized microservice approach iterate above the traditional CDN, push it out to the edge stuff? And how does it help deal with cost structures and all the rest?
Yeah, good question. So let's talk about that. So, containerized microservices means a lot of different things. So, to your example, we are able to analyze in real time during a huge event like the World Cup that Sprint has an outage in Denver, for example. So we know that if you're pulling that from Orange County, and let's say that your route does come through Denver because the way that telcos work, we've got to route around that. We've got to go to Salt Lake City and then to an origin here, maybe in Dallas. So that intuitiveness and that ability to understand what's happening, log it, right? So that our customers understand what's happening, but ultimately deliver a good experience to you means that we're using a microservice in a sense here to understand how to route that request to you. You are one person. What I've just described is going to happen 700,000, a million times today for some of these matches, right? So containerized microservices means that we've got things like that, an analysis element in the player, but we have edge nodes that can encode and edge nodes that understand for a fast channel, not specific to the World Cup. Again, a fast channel is playing on Roku or Samsung or whatever, and oh, there's a missing segment here. I've got to go fix that, right? So it's intuitive, it's AI, but and not genericizing it, but it's very specific AI designed to look at specific functions, conditions, elements of uh, live, fast channels, even on demand content, and understanding. And again, this is kind of, we talked about this in our last segment, which is um, I'm kind of the boss guy. I'm kind of the manager guy. I've got all these agents coming to me saying, "Sir, I did this. Sir, I did this. Sir, I did this." Okay, I got to check your work. Is that channel okay? Yep, looks okay. Approved. But realizing that in some cases that the agent did 95 or 97% of the work, but there's still some missing, right? And unfortunately, it's not like a high school history class or a college English class. I can't just grade the paper at 98. I have to tell the agent that's unsatisfactory. I need the other 2%. So go fix this thing that I've identified for you, right? Sometimes that has to happen in milliseconds. Sometimes it happens with an on-demand piece of content that isn't as timely. But the importance is that there's someone. I'm sorry, I don't want to humanize this, but there is an element that is analyzing what AI is doing, and we believe that's very important. And we've always said human in the middle, and even before the human in the middle, we're saying that there's a manager and there's agentic AI. and there's something to be said about that. It's very efficient, but structure is important too.
Well, every orchestra needs a Gustavo Dudamel. I say that as a very sad LA Philharmonic fan who's seen Gustavo go to New York where he can play with the Knicks. But that being said, it's nice to see not general AI, but specific AI,
Right.
which is probably much more powerful and much more useful because it really knows a specific thing.
That's right.
And then a thing over that to make sure all those little individual, highly specialized things play well with each other and do what they say they're going to do.
That's right.
So, this also, though, is a way to deal with some of the cost of managing these systems. Talk about why or how containerized microservices help eliminate the hardware tax, the so-called hardware tax that you guys talk about.
Yeah. So for a long time in this industry, and you and I are old salts, David, you've been here so you can appreciate this. There was
I don't even have pepper in my hair anymore. It's just salt.
and I
It's all
don't
salt.
I don't have any. So
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah. Well, they salted the field, as it were.
But there was a tax, a premium in this business for doing video business, which was in order to create this stream, this content, and put it in the way that you need it to be to reach that audience, you need this $35,000 piece of hardware, this $100,000 piece of hardware, right? Depending on vendor A, vendor B, vendor C. I won't call them out because I've worked for some of them too, but that was table stakes. And we fundamentally as an organization don't believe in that. If we have a station that can't send us an SRT feed, right? Because their IT department or that function is not as advanced. Again, I'll pick on, like Tupelo, Mississippi. We put an appliance in that facility. And that appliance, by the way, is off the shelf hardware. It's commoditized capture card. It's our technology that's running on that, which is really the special sauce. But we're talking 6, 7 orders of magnitude less expensive than what it was 10 years ago. And I think that's really important. Now, it is also very, very important to talk about if you have a hybrid infrastructure like we do, the hardware tax, yes, goes away, but you've got to be really intuitive about what you do where. And what I mean by that is there's a GPU in those pieces of hardware in Hattiesburg and in New York City and everywhere that we have customers. We're doing this really cool thing with AI where we're extracting metadata and identifying segments and doing vector search and pulling speech to text. Guess what? A lot of that's happening on the hardware on premise. And that's really smart because we're using a GPU to do it for hardware where, the cost is sunk, it's understood, everything is baked in. If I took that signal and just sent it to the cloud and said, okay, AI, go nuts. Man, we've all heard about these tokens. I'd spend a lot of tokens doing that, right? And the customer would be like, hey, yeah, I've got all this information, but my bill this month was X. I'm not really happy about that bill because my usage went through the roof, right? So the moral of the story is understand your technology, and AI is extremely helpful, but know how to wield that sword, because if you're not doing it in the right place, you're not doing it right.
Right. I think it's safe to say that we all know Elvis is not dead. He's just back in his hometown of Tupelo watching live streaming events
That's right.
on the local TV stations because
Probably
he's still using rabbit ears.
Probably UFC. Yeah.
Probably UFC. That's a really good bet. I'm going to give you that one in a walkover. That's a good bet. With this, we should probably wrap this up. I am David Bloom with Next TMT and Next TMT Talks with Matt Smith, the chief evangelist for AKTA, talking about how we deal with the latency crisis in live sports and news events and related stuff that goes live and the challenges that creates in this hot new sector, how cloud DVR and edge computing and containerized miniature services, microservices can help manage the costs and the peaking loads and all those really big challenges folks are facing. With that, we will wrap this up. Thank you, everybody. We're talking about a problem vexing so many production operations in video. They got to do more stuff than ever to output all kinds of things tied to their vast libraries of stuff. I have a friend who's got a library, and he finally has enough stuff. He's going to be going actually to Stream TV to find people that can help him. He's got a couple hundred episodes of stuff, and he's got to figure out what to do with it, because now all of a sudden there's verticals and there's social media and there's short chunks that you maybe throw out that aren't vertical, but they end up on YouTube. And then you've got to run it on fast, and you got to run it in lots of different places. And it turns out you need somebody to do that instead of just the guy who's been doing the content. And that is a challenge facing not just our friend Rob Rose at Raw Travel, but lots and lots and lots of other folks, many of whom will be at Stream TV in Denver, along with us, and with Matt Smith, who is joining me here right now. Talk to me a little bit about what it looks like if you're just a drone dealing with, not a human drone, dealing with some of the tedious stuff that is required to get things out the door.
Well, David, it's like we said in a earlier conversation, you got to kind of decide to jump in the water, right? You see a lot of companies that have a toe in there. They're using AI for a little carve out to make the boss happy. But those who are most successful are those who jump off the end of the pier and say, I'm swimming. This is fantastic, right? I'm going to do it. AI is most valuable when it's embedded directly into the workflow, not bolted on after the fact, right? We're firm believers in that AI is the foundation of everything that we do. So if it's a mezzanine piece of content that's going for on-demand consumption with a traditional cable or telco or Samsung or Roku or LG, that process of analyzing that file, prepping it for the right destination, creating all the artwork, all the thumbnails, all the metadata, everything can be done by AI. That used to all have to be imported via a spreadsheet, or someone would have to sit in front of a monitor and type that stuff in. And now we're saying this supercharges that workflow. And what used to take someone probably 13 to 15 minutes can now be done, just from a QC perspective. I mean, AI can batch up 50 or 100 of these to where someone just goes through and says, yep. No, that one's a little bit off. Okay, I'm going to correct that one. Approved, right? So we're able to take organizations that had many, many bodies that had to sit again in front of monitors and do these tedious tasks, perform these tedious tasks, to now reduce it down to just a couple folks who are essentially approving the work of the workers. And we think that's significant. And then, but across other functions, right? Live linear, right? When a signal's coming in, we're segmenting it so that if it's a newscast, we're identifying, a car chase segment and a court segment and weather and, the city council segment, so that everything is
no TV's doing city council anymore, buddy. It's like they're not, because they know that is not good video. As somebody who covered a lot of city council meetings, let me tell you, that is not good video. So
I've guilty.
You've done some too, I know.
Covered them, and it's boring. But regardless, the AI is doing that work so that if the digital producer, or if it's a show producer who also wears the digital hat, needs to go in and socially syndicate some of these clips out just because they need to reach that social audience or to bring them back to somewhere, it's really just a couple of clicks away, because AI has done a lot of the work for them. They can quickly just say, I identify this segment. I'm going to add this to my canvas. I'm going to put it into Threads and X and Facebook and all these, whatever destination, right? We've got connectors to all that. And with a click, boom, it goes out. So the ability for AI to do these things and not require the user to go tab to tab or app to app to app to app, and drag the process on, really compress that time frame. That's where the rubber hits the road.
It is interesting because to me, in this era, particularly with live events and stuff, but to some extent other content too, when it, the latest episode of Tracker hits, it's timely. You got to get stuff out. The time frame it takes you to capture that sports highlight and get it up is really crucial to being able to monetize it, because there are other people out there motivated to do the same thing, grab that, throw it up there, get what they can get, and move on to the next thing. And if you're a brand, you want to own that audience yourself. You need to be the source, because somebody else will do it if you don't. And that's really where it's going to matter, right?
Yeah. I'd add, if you cannot find the moment, you can't monetize it, publish it, promote it, right? It's got to be blood simple and right there in front of you. And that's kind of what I'm hammering home, is that the AI function on our platform puts that front and center. It's right there. It's just, you're an approver. You're the boss.
This is also, but it's interesting because it's kind of a dumbbell to some extent. It's like, yeah, you could be a little bit slower on getting something out that's on a fast channel because it's stuff that's been out for a while. But lots and lots of big media companies and owners of big libraries of all kinds have lots of video. They have really no idea what's in it, right? And part of what you guys try to do is map and figure that out, wrap metadata around it so it's searchable in a way that it really never has been. That feels really important, particularly if you're trying to tie in a situation like Fast Channel, you're trying to tie highly specific programmatic advertising, for instance, to it. So like, I want to have this ad, but I don't want to be up against this kind of content. Well, how do you know this kind of content or this mood is in this piece? I mean, you've got to be able to know what you have, right? And people don't even know what they have. They can't even search for it. Correct?
That's right. So the more that you're aware of your content, its relevance, especially related to to your point, what that audience wants to consume, it's absolutely vital, right? So I think what we're doing with AI is enhancing and enriching that content so that it's easier to find, easier to search. It's right, again, it's right there front and center, so that you can do something with it is absolutely critical to the points you make, right? It's got to be timely so that you can monetize it, so that your audience can consume it and associate it with your brand. That's very important. The other thing I'd add is we've got this new functionality that's really nifty, and we're going to be showing it in Denver, where we have an interface in the system now where it's very chat GPT like, where you can say, tell me about my streaming performance yesterday. And it will act just like an agent and scroll up and give you information about that particular, it could be a video, it could be a channel, it could be anything. And then even provides you with graphs to show you, okay, here's where viewership fell off, or here's where we didn't monetize ad pod number 3, and here's why, right? I couldn't fetch the ads from GAM, couldn't fetch the ads from Trade Desk or whatever. So it's a root cause analysis, but it's a very, in today's culture, it's in the zeitgeist, right? People want to be able to say, what happened, and have a chat bot tell them, well, here's the data. I'm going to put it out for you, pretty straightforward. And without,
Advertisers really want that. It's not enough. That old line about the department store owner says, I know I'm wasting half my advertising budget. I just don't know which half. That's not okay anymore. So you need to know, I spent X amount. It led to this many connections, that this kind of outcome. And you need to close as much of that loop for an advertiser as you possibly can. So maybe it didn't work over here, but it worked like crazy over here,
yep,
right? And here we can
absolutely.
show these things in a very specific way that helps answer the understandable desire they have for some specificity in where their money's going. And that's really important.
Yep.
The in-place search that you guys have, tell me a little bit about this, because it's like, sounds really cool, really powerful. Why do I want to be able to search thousands of hours of stuff to find when Jerry Seinfeld had that line about, I don't know, master of my domain.
Well, and your last point is relevant, right? So for our customers, if they need to go back to the library for something, again, you said Jerry Seinfeld, he's courtside at the Knicks game. We need some B-roll.
That would actually be a great one, though. Are you the master of your domain? Yes, the Knicks are master of their domain. That would be. I can't not do memes. I freely admit I cannot do memes. That would be a good one, right? Because he's a Knicks fan, courtside. You could do it.
What's the deal with the New York Knicks?
Yeah. That's not a terrible Seinfeld. I got to say, he's fairly easy to do. But that's pretty good. That's pretty solid.
But honestly, let's take Seinfeld, out. But if our customers need to go in and find a clip of Maurice White from Earth, Wind, and Fire, and it's in their library, and
because we got this new documentary that's really cool, right?
Just came out, right? Yeah. We need some B-roll. It's right there, right? I mean, David, you and I we're old salts in this space, right? I mean, we know the days of archives where they were giant tape repositories that
right.
That you had to crank this thing to move it left and right, and you had to go find the tape on the shelf and put it in
pull it out, put it up on the IBM 6350 or whatever it was. Yeah.
Right. So, we sound like get off my lawn guys, but that's the state of the art, though. So the space is advanced.
Get off my tape, guys. Get off my tape, guys.
So we've advanced to this to a point, though, where our platform is already going to index that. So there's even categories down the left nav where you can, it's sports or news, or it's categorized by genre, by type. But you can literally just type in a search term, Seinfeld puffy shirt. And if it's in the library and that's meta tags associated, it's going to come up. Right? That's valuable. So, we get a lot of folks that ask us and say, hey, we already have a VOD library and we've already run it through XYZ vendor process to create the metadata. But I still say to these folks, is it really as enriched as you need it to be? But if I take a file that you say you already have metadata for, put it in the hopper, run it through my process and spit it out, it's going to have more metadata than whatever you did before, right? It can only help. And I say that meaning not only for discovery, but for advertising too. I mean, metadata for advertising is becoming a critical element, right? It's almost table stakes. So being able to pull that metadata and pass it to, again, this is an arm's length from us, though. We don't do this, but pass it to your ad network and say, hey, I've got the following information about my content. It's you
guys, but it's, to be clear, you guys enable. That's not what you do, but you enable with that metadata mapping of the library. You make it possible to then pluck that information and take it to was it a supply side publisher or whatever,
right? Trade Desk or Xandr or whoever, SpringServe, whoever our customers choose. We're agnostic, but you nailed it. That's absolutely right. We do the stitching. We do ad. We place the ads, but we don't sell inventory and we don't broker space or anything like that. But enriching that metadata helps with the ad piece, though, because we've seen with our customers that they get higher CPMs because they have more relevant metadata about that content, right? So that someone who wants to buy BMW or orange juice or something relevant to what's happening in frame, that is tangible information.
Ever better targeted, ever better relevancy leads to more return on investment. I'm going to comfort myself with the thought that decades from now, people using in-place search will look up our conversation and use it as a meme for the future of TV. With that, I'm David Bloom with Next TMT and Next TMT Talks, here with the chief evangelist for AKTA, Matt Smith, talking all about how we automate the production line with an AI-first workflow that saves a lot of tedious work, knows what's actually inside your entire corpus of content in a way that's actually meaningful for both viewers and advertisers, and builds for the future. with that. We're talking about how you unlock the value of content with smart ad monetization. Monetization is the thing. But actually, most big media companies, for all the billions they may make, aren't doing enough, aren't taking advantage of the vast assets they have stuck away in their libraries. And we're going to talk a little bit about how you can improve on that, even if you're not a giant media company, which it turns out there's several people out there, including Next TMT, looking to fully monetize our possibilities. And somewhere between us and, I don't know, Netflix, there's a lot of other folks. And how you use the tools at hand. AKTA has some solutions. We're going to talk a little bit about what that is. Talk to me a little bit about sort of the problem facing folks, Matt.
So you nailed it, David, in your intro. I think a lot of these media organizations don't realize the value of some of the content in their library.
The old stuff, right? I mean, it's just sitting around.
It's
right?
sitting around, right? And it's in a storage location, or it's in a cold storage. And I over the years I've used the example of the Miami Vice channel, right? So there are there's lots of viewers who I think would like to see a Miami Vice Fast channel if it's already not on Peacock. If it is, then please give me credit. But that content and all the metadata about the actors, Don Johnson, Philip Michael Thomas, and Edward James Olmos, and all these people, all that stuff, and the really inherent data, and even in a scene, right? Linen blazer or pink t-shirt.
No, not that. We need to have like the Armani suit like metadata. That's
Right.
really what we need,
Exactly,
right?
right.
But you need to be able to know, oh, he's wearing a lemon yellow
Right. Exactly.
blazer or a very tasteful watermelon shirt,
Yeah,
I mean,
the shoeless Gucci loafers, right? That maybe I would never wear, but again, if you extract that metadata and you associate it with that scene, and I'm not even talking about an episode, right? We're getting down to the scene level, and all that metadata can flow out of that content, or be leveraged to an ad buy, right? So that all of these brands and all of these organizations that sell like content see, okay, you're going to have a Miami Vice channel on Peacock, and you're going to have the following types of fashion items. That's my business. I'm going to buy an ad in every ad pod of every episode of this Miami Vice Fast channel.
and it could be everything from the local Armani store on Rodeo Drive or South Miami Beach, right?
Yep.
Or Armani itself on a national buy, or what, it could be in anything in between, right? So, or the knockoffs are going to want to be next to us, like, because maybe Armani doesn't make that suit anymore, but still looks good.
Absolutely. Metadata is the bridge. It's the absolute bridge between content and monetization, right? That is gospel, and you heard it here first. So being able to
sing it, brother, sing it.
Being able to take that content though and apply, and again, David, you've heard me say this. I mean, I tend to oversimplify things, but running it through this process with modern tools using AI does everything that you need to do. You don't need to hire 30 butts in seats in front of monitors to type all this stuff out. Armani suit and Ferrari and Coca-Cola or whatever it is, or Bacardi rum, all that stuff is extracted, and it can be exported, and you can give those terms to your ad decisioning network, who can help you really raise the CPM for the ads that you play across that channel. And we're using Miami Vice as an example, but I mean, there are 100 other examples of where this really
maybe a million. There's a bunch of examples.
Maybe a million.
Talk to me a little bit, because you guys have not only AI, but a different kind of AI, server-side dynamic ad insertion. And so that pairs with the contextual tagging. Talk about SSDAI and how it works with the other AI that we talk about all the time now, and what that means in terms of contextual tagging.
Yeah, so SSDAI helps us deliver a more seamless ad experience across all screens, right? So we've got to think, can't just think about PC and Mac and iOS and Android now. It's CTV, it's desktop, it's any destination. But
And CTV itself is fragmented into 20 different OS providers,
it's
right? So
it's the new
by
wild wild
itself.
west. It's the new wild
Yeah.
wild west, right? So
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. And we've talked about it, the course of our conversation today is one of the things that streaming does is it gives you the ability to really pretty hyper focus on Matt's stream and David's stream and provide them with, even if they're watching the same episode on the Miami Vice channel, which is as live, you're going to get different ads than me because of preferences, because of cookies, because of your zip code, all these things that are baked into that ad experience. Um,
Also, I'm not as stylish as you are, Matt. So there's that.
yeah, I'm not wearing a very bright jacket today, but thank you. I
Yeah,
appreciate
but you'll come out and like you're going to be all tangerine or something. So,
That's
we
right.
can't wait. In Denver, you'll go Dan Ives on us and like
That's
just have like checks and
I
prints and stuff.
never disappoint. But anyway, yeah, exactly. So the experience is tailored to each viewer, and we're also getting into SGAI, server guided ad insertion, where we're able to do some of these advanced ad formats that the IAB has been looking at and will be approving, but not yet. So things like we see in broadcasts, like a lower third, the L bar, the side by side. So these things are going to improve the state of the art and enable us to deliver very cool broadcast ads, like you see on Fox and on CBS, right, where they do the squeeze back during an NFL game, and add.
Yeah, that's like a whole. They talk about a wild wild west. These new sort of formats where they put ads wrapped around in some fashion, uh, wide open new opportunities, right? But you've got to be able to have ways to output things into that new opportunity, right? And that's part of what you guys are doing. So it seems to me that what you've got IAB standard stuff and you got IAB will be standard
Yeah.
stuff, right? So you're kind of not really betting on the come, but you know where it's going. The standards take time. That's why they're standards. You've got to all agree, but you're kind of hitting that and you can tweak as needed as you get closer to it. But you're trying to cover the stuff that's the lingua franca of the industry, correct?
Absolutely. So, yeah, we're trying to bring the things that we're seeing in broadcast to the streaming realm that are independent of broadcast, right? So we've all seen the lower third where the pterodactyl or the T-Rex runs across the screen and it says Universal Orlando when you're watching Shark Tank on CNBC. So our digital customers say, I want to do that too. I don't want to be reliant on what's coming off the live signal. If I'm doing something else, I want to be able to do that and sell it and monetize that. And so we're bringing that to your point. Um, it's baked. The technology's there. It works. We're doing it for a couple of customers today. Yes, I think the IEB will eventually follow suit and will bless all this stuff. And again, this is good for I think all facets of the industry, right? If the tide lifts all boats, meaning they're all able to monetize it, it's good for all of us.
Now, another complication here, you mentioned all the CTV stuff and all that. It's really important, it seems to me, particularly on the mobile side with the duopoly there with iOS and Android, to be able to deal with advertising there, which is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, as well as more traditional horizontal stuff, whether it's legacy media or streaming or CTV, fast, da, 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 et cetera, et cetera. All of that. You need to be able to output into and monetize at the best possible levels in all of those different places if you're really going to maximize your opportunities, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a slippery slope because the distribution deals that we're seeing these days are becoming more and more complex. So some of these destinations are saying, just send me your signal with ad markers. I'll take care of all the ad insertion and I'll split the revenue with you. And again, actual mileage may vary. I think it generally works out fine. But in our case, We understand iOS, Android, Kepler, the Amazon platform,
Fire.
Fire, the CTV, the Samsungs, the LGs, the Vizios, and the new
Ventura from Trade Desk, on and on and on, right? What
yeah, and
Netflix does. Yeah.
exactly. So we have to keep up with all of the players in the space because we don't want to get caught flat-footed when a customer says, "Hey, I just cut a deal with TCL, and they've got a whole different operating system. Can you guys publish to that?" And then there's this whole subset there, David, where we're fortunate enough to be in the cool guy club, but you have to be certified for a lot of these platforms. A lot of them have a list of a handful of vendors who are the authorized guys to publish to them. Because if David and Matt start their own fast channel and we try to get distribution on Vizio, they're gonna be like, "Whoa, hang on, you guys have that funny." Right.
Yeah. But
So
it will involve us wearing really nice Armani suits, so it'll look cool, and they'll say,
that too,
okay,
right. But
yeah.
anyway, so we've got to keep up with the Joneses. We've got to make sure that whether it's, the most obscure bass fishing channel that you may never watch, or if it's the World Cup, that we can say with confidence to our customers, yes, we can get you to all these destinations, and we know how to do it, and everything will get there flawlessly. And to your point, your monetization will be intact because we know how to insert ads and deliver ads to those platforms.
I am really looking forward to the Matt and David in Armani bass fishing
Oh,
fast channel.
let's
It's
go.
going to
Let's
be
go.
epic. Epic. I'm
Bass
just saying,
fishing.
there's some good bass lakes down there in the Dallas area where you are, I seem to recall.
Yeah,
So we'll head over to Round Rock or whatever. What's that lake just east of Dallas? It's pretty
that's
big.
it.
They got a whole
White Rock.
White Rock. That's it. There's a
White
lot of
Rock.
rocks in those lakes, man. You got to watch
Rock.
it
Yeah.
when you're boating. Don't drink while you're boating. This is a handy summer tip. Anyway, that being said, this has been a fantastic set of conversations. There are 4 of them talking about different aspects of the challenges facing everybody in the world of television as it now stands. AKTA's got some solutions here that I think are pretty interesting. For a deeper look into how Matt articulates these concepts in the industry, you can watch this discussion at AKTA Tech's Matt Smith on AI-powered OTT video at scale. And you can get even more Matt. Maybe not in Armani, but you get more Matt, where he unpacks the integration of AI directly into the foundation of modern media distribution pipelines. So, with all of that, this is David Bloom for Next TMT and nexttmt.com with Matt Smith, Chief Evangelist, and you can see why, because he can sing the gospel of AKTA and how it's helping solve some of the problems out there. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, David.